Okay, so here we are in the second video for viruses, and we left off talking about HIV and how HIV works. So let's move on to talking about vectors and what that means. A vector is basically a way for a disease to spread, how it gets around between the population of the organisms that it targets. So let's talk about disease spread. Some viruses, as we talked about in the last video, are aerosol viruses. They're spread through the air. And so vectors for these can include anything from airplanes, airports, just general open locations that we will have interaction with those people that may carry that virus. Body fluids, that is something else we talked about, like HIV is a body fluid virus, and so that is transmitted through some form of body fluid. So an individual has an open wound and some type of saliva gets into that open wound, or sexually transmitted diseases fit into those body fluid viruses as well. So those is another vector in which the virus will spread. Just general contact, shaking hands with an individual who has viral diseases on their hands, not that they have the virus themselves, but maybe just be carrying it, and you shake hands with them and then you touch your eye and then it gets in through the opening there of the eye. So that's general contact. And then of course viruses that come from other animals. So insects are a classic viral vector. That means that they're going to inject or bite you, and then they're going to inject the virus into your bloodstream. And so those are what we talk about with viruses and viral spread. And so those are the vectors that we're referencing. So when we talk about vectors, we have to understand that these vectors are a way that has made viruses far more global than they were many years ago, especially when we talk about aerosol viruses. I mean, we get in an airplane and that air is circulating over and over again and spreading the virus to everybody that's in that plane, and then everybody gets off of that plane and they're going to walk home or get home and walk into a room, and they're spreading it to whoever they come in contact with. So virus spread, vector spread, has become such a huge concern when we talk about viruses, because we are now being infected by viruses from everywhere, to which we were maybe only locally exposed to viruses. Now we're being globally exposed to viruses, so that's going to lead to a lot of problems. And that's where the invention of the vaccine really came in. Obviously it came about early on because of major viruses that were wiping out whole populations, like smallpox and polio and stuff like that. But they are what has now become sort of the norm. And the reason for that is, it is a biological agent that's created, made in a lab, that's used to provide immunity to any particular trait or disease of a virus. And so we want to talk a little bit about how they work so that you understand the mechanisms and how the vaccine is used, and maybe that'll help as you're putting your discussion posts and things together when it comes to vaccines. So let's talk a little bit about how they work. The biological agent is what we call it, is kind of a liquid substance that's made in a lab, and it's used and made to resemble the disease agent that it's targeting. So whether it be, flu, for example, or the polio vaccine, they are made to target those specific vaccines. Remember, I showed you in the last video how every vaccine has every virus has a very specific shape. Well, these vaccines are made to attack those specific shapes. It is the biological agent is usually a dead or weakened form of the virus. So that it basically, when you're injecting a vaccine into the body, you're injecting the actual virus into the body, but it is in a very weakened state, or it's in a dead state. And sort of the purpose of doing that is to spur your immune system. You have in your immune system two cells, a B cell and a T cell. And what it does is it tries to force them to produce what are called antibodies. And antibodies are response mechanisms to antigens. Antigens are usually the foreign substance, in this case the virus, that's in the body that our body is trying to fight against. And so we produce these antibodies to fight these antigens that are in the body. Well, when you're infected with a virus, your body doesn't know what that is. It's a foreign substance. So it has to learn what that is. It has to then try to create an antibody from scratch, and then it's going to release that antibody that will then attack and affect the antigen. But the amount of time that it takes for our bodies to produce those antibodies, that virus could have replicated a ton before it gets to the point where it can actually kill it. And so what happens is our bodies will produce the antibodies anyway, but it could be such a slow process that the virus has spread so far that our bodies are weak, we're tired, we can't function properly, and so the immune system is overworked and can lead to other complications like getting other infections, bacterial infections, and other things like that. Or it just is so far gone, it's so far spread before the body starts attacking it that it could overtake the body, and the body wouldn't have time to respond to it. So it's a situation where our bodies could fight every virus if they're given the time to do so. And so what a vaccine does is it buys time. Because what happens is we inject the body with the virus, and automatically the B and the T cells will start producing, will do that process, that memorizing process. They'll figure out what it is. They will try to interpret that antigen. They'll try to make an antibody to fit that antigen and tear it apart. And once they fight one virus, they memorize that antibody for life. So our body will memorize how to make those antibodies. And so when it comes into contact with a live version of that virus, if we're talking about the vaccine, then it will automatically attack that virus. It doesn't have to wait for recognition and development and all this other stuff. It's an immediate response. So what vaccines do is they buy us a little bit of time to give us a better chance for our immune system to attack that particular antigen that's in the body, in the bloodstream. So when you think about that, it's giving us something that we don't normally get, which is time. Time is such a hard thing to grasp. And so for vaccines, it's giving us sort of that leg up to fight these viruses. Now, the problem is there are adverse effects, obviously, and you're learning a little bit about that, I hope, as you go through, where they can affect the body in negative ways. But for the most part, to give you an understanding of what the vaccines are and how they work, that was why I wanted you to see, to sort of understand that. If you take a look at this diagram here, this is a nervous system cell, and it is attacked by a virus. And you can imagine any virus that's going to attack the nervous system is going to be extremely detrimental, extremely harmful. So a vaccine for something on a nervous system end would be very beneficial, because if you're attacking the nervous system, that's going to knock somebody out. And so here's an antibody. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused here. So here's my antibody as it is attacking the pathogen. Pathogen is another term for foreign body object. It could be a bacteria, it can be a virus. And so here it is attacking this virus right here to try to get it to stop before it even gets to the nervous cell. So it's really important that we have that memory in our body in order to fight properly any type of pathogen that's going to come in line and come in contact with it. So it's one of those situations. Now again, though, we do talk about that viruses have a tendency to mutate, and they change so frequently that it's hard to necessarily keep up with them. And so the antibodies have a hard time doing that too. And so those are all kind of goods and bads when we start talking about viruses and vaccines. So both these videos should give you some good understanding, some good background knowledge on viruses and vaccines. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to hearing what some of your views are on viruses and vaccines in the discussion board below. Thanks so much. Have a great day.